everyone. My name is Manuel Carmona Pichardo. I'm a third year chemistry PhD student from Mexico. I work with nanomaterials.
Hi everyone, my name is Esther Jimenez. I'm a rising fifth year PhD student in the biochemistry and cell biology lab, and my concentration is in synthetic biology.
Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to this Ambassador's Highlight. Here's Esther with me. I'm Manuel, and today we're going to be discussing a bit about our how did we got into RISE and all of our experience in grad school. So Esther, would you like to talk to me a bit about why did you decide to go to grad school?
Yeah, so the reason that I decided to pursue graduate school was because throughout my undergraduate degree at the University of Texas at Austin, I was immersed in research for the entirety of my 4 years there. So I did synthetic biology, developmental biology, structural biology, and I just really knew that I wanted to do research for my future, and graduate school was the way to go. And so I decided to pursue a career here. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And how do you think is the program here at RISE?
Honestly, the reason that I decided to specifically come to RISE was because I really enjoyed just the graduate student environment. And so everyone here just seemed a lot happier. They seemed that, really good vibes overall. And that was something that was really important to me because I wanted to find a community that I felt accepted and I felt just comfortable with. Yeah. What about you? Why did you decide to pursue graduate school?
Before studying grad school, I was actually working. So I did a master's, and then after the master's, I started working. And while I was working, I actually reached a point in my career where they were like, okay, there was me with my master's, and everyone else had a PhD. So it was a point where I realized that there was a limit that I could achieve. Everyone treated me the same. However, I knew that in rank and in position, if I wanted to push higher, I couldn't go anywhere because I didn't have the degree.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided that, okay, I need to go to grad school. And actually, one of the jobs I did before before actually doing grad school was here at RISE.
Awesome.
I work as a guest researcher in one of the research labs in the BRC. Mm-hmm. And during that time, besides getting to make connections and everything, I got to see the life at RISE. And that's one of the things that I could experience that I was like, if I wanted to go to grad school, where would I go? So the only university I applied was RISE.
Because of just the life that you saw here and how the graduate students were. Yeah, that was something that really caught my attention too. It was definitely a defining factor.
Yeah, because I came here as my ID said visitor kind of situation. So I technically wasn't a student, but still because of that, I was still treated like one. And that was one of the part. I was invited to the events. I was in the mailing list. I was a part of the community besides being a temporary person here.
Yeah.
Which I thought it was pretty cool. And also during that time, I worked a lot with the OISS, the Office of International Students, and they were super helpful with everything. And that's when I realized that because RISE is small, that they actually get to meet you, the people, everyone that is in an office. Just came to me and say hi, the director of OISS at that time, Adria, who I still adore. Every time I saw her, she said hi and everything. So you're more than just a number, it is in big universities like the ones I come from.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you and I both came from big universities, and so when we came here, we just felt a lot more noticed, and we felt I don't know, it's a different feeling from being in just another number versus being someone who, people actually care about. So I totally know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things that is crazy when you think about it. A lot of people when I started is oh, but what is the best research or what is the best institutions or it's like that. And they don't realize that a lot of the times research is something that it's really with a lot of frustration, with a lot of demand, there's a lot of stress, a lot of work, because at the end of the day, the reason you're doing research is because you're discovering things that haven't been done before.
Right.
So you cannot have the answer directly.
Yeah.
And having a strong community or a place that you belong makes this process so much easier and actually bearable.
Right.
Well, I might be in a fancier university, but if I'm not happy, I'm not going to make it.
Which kind of brings me to my next question for you as to what lab, when you entered graduate school, what lab did you choose and why?
It
did
was
you
one
do
of the
it?
interesting parts because it's a different lab than the one I worked before.
Mm.
So I worked before with Professor Laszlo Kurti, and I love him. He's amazing, but he was doing a research that I'm not that interested. And
Mm-hmm.
in the chemistry, at least in the chemistry department, one of the cool things that we have is that you get accepted by the department, not by a professor per se. So
Mm-hmm.
what you do is rotate through different labs during your first year, your first semester, and then you get to choose which lab to join. And I think that's something fantastic
Yep.
because you come and you actually get to see. I actually rotated in 3 labs that did 3 different things. So at the same time, I could learn a
Right.
tiny bit of the research, and at the same time, get to talk to the people, get to meet the people. And the lab I chose was the one that I have never done that type of research before, but I love the people. My PI currently is Matt Jones. We work with nanomaterials. Before that, I was doing catalysis and organic synthesis. Well, a bit of organic
Wow.
synthesis and organic.
That's really different fields.
Yeah, like I changed because like for me like my priority was like this is the people that like this is the boss I want. This is the person that is gonna take me to where I want to go, and this is the group that can support me. And I've learned, of course, at the beginning there were so many concepts and so many things that were like, okay, I have no idea how to use a centrifuge,
Yep.
for example.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they taught me everything, and they were like super nice with me. Like everyone in the SEA, everyone here, like were like, "Oh, you don't know how to do this? No worries, I'll teach you." Boom, and then I learned, and then they let me do everything. So
Do you
it's
think
pretty cool.
it's a misconception that a lot of people going to graduate school like really focused on just the research itself, not really thinking about the environment or the community, and they just kind of focus on that versus like what they should be also taking into account is like who's your advisor? Do you have a good relationship? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's pretty. A lot of people go with that. Like they go like, "Oh, but this PI, like his name is pretty big," and he's like, "Yeah, but is he a good person?" Or like,
Yeah.
or do you like
Yeah.
the work environment? Do you in some cases, if that person is really big, do you even see him or
Right.
see her? Like
Yeah.
because the really big professors are normally really busy.
Right.
Like you're working only with postdocs,
Mm-hmm.
and it's one of those things that a lot of people don't take into consideration. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I have the same conception that you do. I think, a lot of people go into graduate school and they're just like, I want to pursue cutting edge research. I'm not really concerned in whose lab that is. I just want to do, like, for example, I want to do a lab that, like, pursues cutting edge technologies to find a cure for cancer. And they're not really taking into consideration who the person is that is going to be essentially your mentor for the next 5 years, who your lab mates are going to be. Because ultimately, what you said is true. I think once you get into your lab, your advisor, yes, is your mentor, but you rely very heavily on your lab. And you rely on other graduate students and postdocs, and ultimately you want to work with good people, right? People that are willing to help you learn how to use a centrifuge, learn how to do a Western blot to get your project, to where you need it to be so you can graduate. And so you just want a lab that one, you don't just have to call them like your colleagues, but you can call them your friends too, because ultimately we're all going through the same thing. And so you want people that, one, sympathize with you, two, you can be, you guys can struggle together, but you can also lift each other up, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to be in a lab where, like, you don't talk to anyone. It's like, what are you going to do when something goes wrong? Because, I mean, your advisor is also busy writing grants and stuff. They're not going to be there micromanaging you 24/7. So you really need to find a good balance between maybe not, working on something so cutting edge, but working on innovative research that you are happy with, but also you have a really good lab dynamic, because I think that's super important just in anywhere that you go.
Yeah, and actually this lines with what would be my next question that is about then like what is there? Like there's some people that are so like stuck like, oh, lab.
Yeah.
Well, there's so much more. What do you think about that? Like the work-life balance and everything else?
Personally, I come from a background where, like, I've always been very work focused, so, like, always on the grind. And it wasn't actually until I got older, like my mid-20s, that, like, I realize that's not everything that life has to offer. You know what I mean? Like, I think you can work and grind for 8 hours and then go home and give your mind a rest and spend time with your family, like spend time with your dog or cat or like anyone, and just like have that work-life balance that is very necessary to, one, keep you mentally sane in such a demanding job, and also, you know, help your body relax and not be on all the time, because being on all the time, you will burn out. Like, we can tell you that straight up. You will burn out if you're on all the time for 5 years.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, when you go through so many failures, the way that grad school, you know, it's not a myth. You do fail continuously in graduate school. It's about getting up, and it's about, you know, just trying your best to not overexert yourself. You have to find a balance, or else you just don't last for 5 years. What do you think?
I mean, I actually lived it. Like
Right.
I said, I did before a master's, and I was like that. I was like, I need to push. Like, I was like, oh, I have to be here my 8 hours, and then I went home and I kept working. And I was like, oh, I need to read this paper, so I need to be this, I need to be that. And there was a moment I exploded. Like, literally, I burned out. I was done. I went to the emergency room. Like, it was pretty bad.
Right.
So that's when I really, like, I had to basically force myself, like, no work at home. Like, literally, like, papers couldn't enter my apartment otherwise, because I would be stressed and stuff. And by doing that, like, I realized, like, hey, you can be productive without the need of killing you in the process.
Right.
And, like, for example, right now, I don't believe per se in schedules. Like, I don't believe in working like, oh, you need to be here like 8 hours. Because for me, like, even in research, there are days that are pretty good, that everything works out and you're working. And for me, it's like, oh, it's 8 p.m. I've been here for 10, 12 hours and I haven't realized. And it's like, oh, I need to go.
Yeah.
And then I just go. But that day I was like, I've done everything. And then there's days that I come and the first thing that touches breaks. And I'm like, okay, I'm done for
not
today.
the day.
Yeah,
It's
like,
not
I
the
think
day
today nothing works. Today's
Yeah.
not. And then I just go, I walk around, I talk to other people. I get involved in a lot of other activities, which is a lot of the community that's important also when you choose a university or when you choose a research group, or the people you're going to hang out with, is what other activities they are.
Yeah.
So, for example, like, leading on that, and I also would like to hear your perspective on this, but RISE offers like a lot of really cool both groups as well as activities. Because first of all, you have all the different activities that are already organized by the university. Like, you have the Door Institute that helps you, like, in leadership development. You have the career development. You have the well-being center for, like, mental health, and also the rec center for, like, gym and activities. But at the same time, you have all the other cool things like the Valhalla, that is the bar.
Yeah.
You have all the student associations.
Yeah.
So what do you think of all of that?
No, I agree with you. I mean, I think it's really important to get involved in a lot of different things. So many cool things are happening on Rice campus. I mean, you can get involved in leadership in maybe your department's GSA. I know you were, you know, involved in the chemistry GSA.
Yeah.
I've been involved in the biochemistry and cell biology GSA, and you can make a change there. And even if you want to make a change on a broader scope, we have the Graduate Student Association for all graduate students on campus. Right now, I'm serving as Vice President of Professional Development to try to help graduate students get to basically their end goal after graduate school. And so there's so much to get involved. We have culture night, we have beer bike, and so it's just like a lot of great activities and organizations to really get you to have a community. And that's just like the beauty of it all, just having a community.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
think it's really important to have that, like in this part of like work-life balance, that you're more than your research. Like, you need to, like, PhD is not just about developing as a researcher, but it's also developing as a person, as an adult. And one of those things is like not just the community that you can make through networking, that it's, of course, is important, but at the same time, your support group, and as well, like, things that you like to do, like develop hobbies, like if you like sports or whatever you want to do.
What are some of your hobbies that you have?
Too many, probably. I probably my biggest one is that I love coffee, and I have a big. I love different ways of brewing it and the beans and stuff. And I love board games. So I play a bunch of board games and I have them at home. And there's a board game club here at Rice.
Yeah, see, like that's really fun. Super important to have hobbies too. I know. So some of my hobbies are actually like I really enjoy baking.
Oof.
So I love baking like desserts, cookies, cakes, all that for all of my lab members.
And I was like, and what about the other ambassadors? Like, I haven't ever tried the baking. Just for the record, I want this to be filmed.
I'll bring some next time for an ambassadors event. But I love baking cupcakes. I also just enjoy like running, going to the gym, like spending time with my dog. You know, like I love doing all of those things. And so I think it's really important to just have an outlets and like have ways to like just relax. You know, after hard day's work. Our job isn't easy, so.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy. Which brings me to my question. What you think is the most challenging part of graduate school?
I think it's that part of like the perseverance of the fact that you come here with the idea of like, yeah, and I know the science and I know the theory, and then I know that this plus this is gonna give me this, so I go in the lab and I mix them, and guess what? You don't get what you were thinking.
Yeah.
And then there's like, okay, or it's like, oh, I think I got what I need, but I need to prove it. And then you realize like, oh, the skills I have right now are lacking, and now I need to learn how to do this, and maybe it doesn't give me the results. And it's a lot of those back and forward of frustrating moments where you just want to be done with the project and be like, I don't care. And it's like, no, this is part of what the PhD is teaching you of like, first of all, that research is a process. It's not, you might get lucky and then once everything works and congrats, but most of your projects are going to have a lot of hiccups on the way.
Yeah.
And it's important to not surrender on the first one.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I have to agree with everything that Manuel is saying. I just think, if you're going into graduate school, this isn't the time. Like, you don't go into graduate school because you don't have another option. You go into graduate school because you actually... research is exciting because you want to do the work. You want your research started or doing the rotations, and like you kind of forget that like, hey, like you're a person. You have to take care of yourself too. And so I feel like I was just so focused on getting my project to work that I didn't invest the time in myself that I wish I should have. You know what I mean? And so that's why I said it wasn't until like I was in my third year or fourth year that I was like, oh my gosh.
That you finally got it. Yeah.
I was like, I need to get out of this. Like, I need to start making friends, going to get involved in all of these activities and all of these clubs, and like actually trying to be as happy as I can, and the best version of myself.
And with all of these things that now that you finally got out of the lab, like if you could share like one experience that you think was like super cool and super like out of like, if you could say like this is one of the highlights of my PhD, what would that be?
Honestly, I feel like one of the highlights of my PhD overall was one, like I really, really enjoy like ambassadors, like what we do. Being a graduate student ambassador is so rewarding because we get the opportunity to help prospective students through this really difficult process and this difficult transition of maybe undergrad or like you're coming from a job or a master's into a PhD, because I didn't have that when I was transitioning from undergrad to PhD. I didn't know how much of like a transition it actually is, especially if you're moving from a different place and you're having to come and adjust to a new life here. It's just a lot of stressors. And so I love that we're mediators, that we help in any way that we can to help make the transition easier. And I've met so many great people in this organization. Like Manuel, I met Manuel here. So like, it's just like a really amazing community of ambassadors that we have, and everyone is super kind and helpful. And yeah. What about you?
I was going to say the same one, but now I'm going to switch it a bit. But I mean, just in that same line, like for me also, like the position of ambassadors, what helped me is that, like I said, I only applied to RISE. I mean, it was the university I want to be, but like I didn't know you could apply to more. Because where I come from, like that's not common. Like it doesn't work like that. So it's one of those things that there's a gap in knowledge, like when you come from another country or from a different culture. So I want to be that bridge that helps that. Like I want to be with other people in, hey, of course I would love you to come to RISE, but there's more out there. If you don't find what you want here at Rice, hey, you can apply for more. Like you can do more things, and that's one of the things I want to do. The other thing I want to talk, because actually both of us were involved, is something called the Ignite program.
Yes.
Which is basically a program where you go to, but that is about entrepreneurship. And basically we go to California, to the Silicon Valley, and you get to talk with a lot of venture firms and people who had made like really big companies and CEOs, and they explain you their adventure and what they have done right, what they have done wrong, and you get like a lot of it. And for me, since like I'm in the STEM field, like for me that's something completely new. Like Esther and me were one of the few there that were like, okay, we're not MBAs, like we're not like that, and it was really fun. And like it was we met a lot of people that weren't in our field, and we could talk to them about like, this is what I do, and then they told us, oh, and well, I work like with this type of investments and this type of things, when we were like from completely opposite worlds, and that for me was really like an enriching experience.
Yeah, I have to agree. It was that Ignite track was also one of the best experience that I had like as my PhD, because like it didn't feel like you were just networking. It felt like you were actually connecting with not just the MBA students, but the founders were super helpful. They're willing to talk to you. You know, we got to learn about what it takes to start a company, because you know we could easily get involved in biotech, you know, and so if we actually did want to start a company, we have insights into that, which a lot of students don't. You know, they think it's easy, and we learned that it was really hard. So you know, we got insights into venture capital, and we just learned a lot about the business side that we don't get exposed to on an everyday basis.
Yeah, and I think definitely that's a part that like all of those experiences that this university offers you, that makes you a more well-rounded PhD. Well, not just PhD student, but as a person and as a professional.
Yeah.
So the fact that we have these type of opportunities is something that I want to highlight from my PhD and from the university.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like what I was gonna say to that, like you don't just have to, you know, get involved with the business school. There's also the Office of Technology Transfer. They offer internship for students that want to learn about technology commercialization. There's also opportunities, like I said, to learn about venture capital as a STEM major and how you can contribute to that. And so there's science writing that I know there are some courses that the TMC offers in the Fondren Library. And so like there's just a lot of things that we're surrounded with, you know, being like the neighbor to the TMC where there's innovation occurring every second. I mean, there's just so many open doors for us, and we're really like, we're privileged to be here, you know?
And everything is free, which is...
Everything is free.
It's one of those things that is like, I don't see why more people don't take advantage of it, because all of this is free. So it's one of the big things every time like a new student comes and tells me like, hey, what do you think, or should you do, is like, hey, all of this is free. Take advantage.
Definitely, which I feel like you've taken like so much advantage
I've done everything.
I kind of wanted to ask how your experience was at the Door Institute, because I know you're involved in that, and a lot of incoming prospective students don't know about it, and you can already start in that sense when you get here, right? Day one. So like, I think it's an amazing opportunity, so I wanted to see like what your perspective was on it.
Oh yeah, I mean definitely. The Door Institute is the Door Institute for Leadership Development that it's here at Rice is one of the few centers that basically focuses on developing leaders. Like a lot of the times, like we hear like the word leader, and you think about like president, or you think about like someone big, when you don't realize like a leader is your PI. A leader is the person that is in your lab, like normally the eldest, or the person that has like the most responsibility, or like we're all leaders at a certain point in our life.
Yeah.
And I've realized throughout like my career when I've been working that a lot of people are bosses, but they're not leaders. Like they like bossing around and like making people, but like they're not really good at guiding you, or they're not really good at that. And here at like first they give you like there's something called activation, which is a program where you get a one-on-one with an executive coach. The executive coaches, like if people know, they're incredibly expensive. Like if you want to get them like privately, they cost a lot of money. And here you get like a full semester of one for yourself, like for free.
Wow.
So it was a good chance to actually, and then you do like a test where they actually like do like science-based tests to test like your leadership skills right now.
Wow.
So you can actually see like where you are, because a lot of the times you're like, oh, I'm really empathic, I'm really like this, and then when you do that test, you realize, well, maybe I am, but I don't know how to use it, or I don't know how to explain it. And when you're working with your coach, is one of those things that you can work on, and that's something that it really hooked me in. And at the same time, it's something that it's free. It's part I can just do it, and it helped me develop so much.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, like there's something called Catalyst that is individual modules about specific things. So, for example, one thing that I've struggled a lot was with listening, and there's a program called Active Listening, and it's only 2 sessions. Like it takes you 4 hours, and it's so valuable. And they give you how to write it on your CV. So it's not just like you're learning a lot; it's useful, and a lot of companies, and I can tell you this because I talked to some people that are hiring. That is one of the things they're checking right now. Right now, like leadership development, like personal development is something that is pretty big, because right now what they want is like people that can work in teams, that can work with people from other type of cultures, from other types of personality. So it's something that is pretty important in my opinion, and that here at Rise you have the opportunity that everything is free.
Yeah, so definitely take note of the opportunities that we're talking about, because I also know like a lot of this is not disseminated the best to graduate students. So like if you want these resources, you kind of have to go dig, at least in my experience. And so what Manuel and I have been like going through is like a lot of professional development as we're entering kind of our last stride here at Rice. And so definitely take note of everything that we're saying. Take advantage of the opportunities. There's so many that people aren't aware of. And it's just a great place to grow, right?
Yeah, definitely. And now that we like talk a bit about Rice, like I want to take the scope a tiny bit out. And what do you think about Houston, like as a city, like one of the big things? It's not just the university, but it's where you're gonna live.
Well, I was born and raised here in Houston, Texas, so I am a native. I love the city. I think it's the one thing that I have to say is that Houston has amazing food. So from basically any part of the world, there is something here in Houston that is actually good, in my opinion. And I really enjoyed exploring different cuisines. It's a very diverse city, so you're going to see like different people all come together in one place. And that's one of the exciting parts of our city, I think. And additionally, I mean, I was like born and raised here, so I like really like our museums, and I love our zoo. It's one of the best zoos in Texas. I think it's actually the best zoo in Texas, other than the Dallas-Fort Worth one. But I just really enjoy the city. The only thing that I do have to say though is that if you're driving here, be careful, because one, the traffic is really bad, and two, the drivers we're on another. We don't think the same as other people. The drivers are crazy. So yeah, I just have to say that. That's kind of like my synopsis on Houston. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. Like especially with the driver part. Like I think I come from a really cold and dry place, so the weather for me is a bit iffy because it's really humid.
Yeah.
But overall, like I think you have like the summer months that are pretty tough. But besides that, I like it because it's warm throughout the year.
Yeah.
Like there's only like maybe January and February that it's a bit chilly, but the rest of the year is pretty cool weather. Like except the summer, that it's really hot. But then like during what would be like fall and beginning of winter is a pretty decent temperature. So I do think that there's like its ups and downs with the weather.
Yeah.
I like that. For example, everything is like accommodated like in different areas. Like for example, here in the where Rice is, that is also the Med Center is also called the Museum District. So you have like the zoo, the parks, the museums, and everything is like really close. So you can basically go around and have like, oh, I want to go to this place. Okay, then I want to go to museums. Oh, I can only go through here.
Yeah.
And that way is like everything is connected and everything passes through the metro line. And for me, that's pretty nice. Of course, the cuisine is really important because I come from Mexico, so having authentic Mexican cuisine. Would you be surprised that even though we're really close, sometimes it's hard to get like something really authentic because there's so much Tex-Mex?
Yeah.
But it's still like, Tex-Mex is still good. I like Tex-Mex, but I do want from time to time to taste my cuisine, but also like the Chinese food here is amazing.
Yeah.
I tried from Ethiopia, from Turkey, from The last one I went that was pretty cool was from Thailand and from Persia, and they're pretty good food. So like you can try everything, and that's something that I found fascinating.
Yeah, I do love that about Houston. I've been traveling a lot in the U.S. and what I found is like there's a lot of places that you just don't find that.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm used to it, you know, because I was born and raised here. So it's like it's really hard for me to like go to a different place and be like, oh my gosh, there's no good Mexican food here. So
Definitely.
then I'm just like, I don't know what to do. So, but that's like, yeah, that's one of the things that I just really enjoy about Houston.
And for wrapping up, the final question, if you could give like an advice to a first year grad student, just arrived, touched rice, or touch any grad school whatsoever, and you have one piece of advice, what would that be?
Prioritize that you have a really, really good relationship with your PI and your lab members, your future lab. So if you're doing rotations, if your program is a rotational program like Manuel's and our program, you can do 3 rotations. Please, please, please do not focus so much on the research and focus more on the relationship that you have with your lab members, the vibes, and of course with your PI, because that's going to shape you for the next 5 years, and you're going to have to be there for the next 5 years of your life. And it might not sound like a lot, but when you're going through a lot of struggles, it is
quite a lot.
So please do that. If you're not going into a rotational program and you've already decided on a lab, the first thing that I would tell you is please, please, please prioritize work-life balance. Do not kill yourself in the lab for 12 hours a day. Please. You should be having a really good balance. That's my top.
Yeah, mine, like, it would be on those lines, but the other one is, like, I know we said a lot of really cool things that you can do and get involved, and all of that is important, but remember, this is, like, I know this is a cliche, but this is a marathon, not a sprint. Do not put too much on your plate. You have 5 years to do everything you want, to join the Door Institute, to do this, to do that, to that. Yeah. I know a bunch of people that come here first year and they want to eat the world, and that's good. That's good that you come with a lot of initiative and you want to participate. But then they're taking classes, doing TA, trying to get into a lab, trying to do Door Institute, try to join the CGSA or try to join an organization or trying to be active, and it's like that's too much, and that's another way of burning out. Like too few social life or too much can kill you. So it's one of those things of like, make sure that every year is like a focus. Your first semester, getting into a lab. Your second semester, starting your research and finishing your classes. Third semester, finishing TA. Fourth semester, your QE or whatever you have to do. And then like from that moment forward, okay, now joining organizations, participating, doing things like that. Like you have more than enough time to do everything. So please calm down. You got this. Chill. You can you can do whatever you want. And on that same line, that it's because something that triggers this is do not compare yourself with anyone else. Your speed is your speed. Take your time. Just because something works for someone, that doesn't mean that's going to work for you. So just make sure to keep that in mind. And with that, I want to thank everyone that is watching this, and I want to thank Esther for coming here today.
Thanks.
And I wish you the best in your choices, and see you guys.
Good luck.